Hello, I'm Pete Devlin. I'm your host in this segment of Access Door County. And today we're going to talk about the Thresheree in Valmy. It happens every August, and it always brings a few angry phone calls to some of the organizers. Let's start with the idea of what the Thresheree is, first of all. And with me, immediately to my left, is Ralph Bochek. And over farther to my left, your right, would be John Rudolph. They're a couple of the principals in the Thresheree. How did this all come about? I know it's been going on for, at least 25 years, right?
More like 35 years.
Okay.
We started in 1983 as a small group of people who were dedicated to showcasing our antique farming machinery and antique power.
Mm-hmm. In those days, was it mostly steam powered, or was it just early gasoline engine as well?
Actually, throughout our history, we've typically had a steam engine at our show, but the vast majority of the emphasis has been on gasoline powered engines.
I would suspect, though, that the steam tractor probably draws most of the attention, doesn't it?
It's usually exciting to see, and when it releases the steam into the air, when the relief valve pops, it usually gets people's attention.
And so every year you meet at the same location every year since it started, right?
When we first started in 1983, of course, the club was very low on funding. And so Bernie and Shirley Geisel had the idea of hosting an annual event that featured threshing machines and other power demonstrations at their farm and a little bit to the northwest of Valmy.
Okay.
And for the first 16 years, the event was held annually on their farm.
And now where is it?
We were very fortunate in that a piece of land came up for sale. A retiring farmer offered it to the club at a significant price savings.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a grove of woods on this piece of property that caught everybody's eye. And we decided it was time for the club to invest and purchase our own piece of property.
What was so special about that grove of woods?
Well, it had been pastured heavily, and so there was no underbrush. It was a very clean, very pastoral setting of adult trees, provided a lot of shade. Many of the people that come to our event are elderly and appreciate the fact that they can take a relaxing rest in the shade, and it just provided a great setting for our organization.
You say that many of these people who come are older. I don't like to use the term elderly since I'm getting there myself, but they're older adults, and they probably remember working with this equipment when they were younger, and when the equipment was a lot younger too. Is that right?
Well, that's absolutely correct. Recently, I read an interesting little ditty that said, if you had a good childhood, eventually you'll find a way to get back to it. And I think that really captures what all of our members think. They enjoyed working with that machinery when they were young. And also the people that come to spectate remember those days fondly.
How many people would you estimate come to the event each year?
Ralph, what would you think?
It kind of depends on the year and the weather. Every year we buy approximately 3,000 buttons, but we also have a lot of spectators that come beyond that. And so I would think between spectators as well as exhibitors, between 300 and 3,500 people come every year.
Now, lately, there seems to be some controversy that is involved with the weekend.
Well, I guess it's not really a controversy. Locally, we have very little controversy. We have got controversy coming from other avenues far beyond our borders of Wisconsin. I run the pig wrestle, I guess that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
This past year, I've had calls from California, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania. Had a few from southern Wisconsin and Madison. Basically from animal rights people complaining about saying we're abusing our pigs, which I strongly deny.
You said abusing, they're
Right.
accusing you of abusing the pigs. Okay.
Yes, and which I strongly deny. I say we take very good care of our animals. I've said for years we take better care of our pigs than we do of our wrestlers. We are I'm a very staunch believer, if anybody abuses our animals even a little bit, they are not allowed back in the ring. The pigs are taken care of extremely well for two reasons. Number one, these pigs are a livelihood of somebody else's. Some years we own the pigs ourselves. Some years we've raised them ourselves. Some years we use them from a local pig farmer. This is a livelihood of somebody, a farmer, or of our own club members. We've all been farmers. This is our livelihood. We do not want them harmed. As being farmers, we realize the value of animals. We are animal husbandry people. We do take very good care of our product. These animals eventually will go into slaughter, and we want them taken care of very well. We don't want them harmed in any way. These people, I had calls coming from all over, and by talking to these people, if they wanted to talk to me decently, I would talk to them. These people, number one, have never raised an animal. Most have never been on a farm. They don't have a clue. They're telling me about pigs squealing. If you've ever raised any hogs, you will realize that no matter how you handle a hog, they will squeal and make noise.
I never have personally done that, but I was in a situation when I was growing up that the person next door did, and yeah, I agree, they make noise.
And I will stand by my feelings that we do take good care of them. We've had veterinaries, we've had police officers, we've had deputy sheriffs wrestle, and I will stand by my comment before. We take very good care of our hogs, and I will stand by reputation. We've never had a hog hurt, and we've done this for 34 plus years, and we've never had a hog hurt, and we do take care of them, and we will continue our pig wrestling for years to come.
What is the sport? What does the participant do? I mean, the hog sits there and squeals, or doesn't sit there, but the hog contributes to the squeal. What does the human contribute?
Well, the humans actually, they're a 4-person team that have a maximum of 1 minute to catch the hog and touch its belly on top of a 55-gallon drum. And at that time, they take and they carry the hog back to the trailer and put him back in. We have referees out there that make sure there's nobody hitting, nobody pulling on him wrong. The hog's nose is not allowed to touch in the mud or covered up in any way. Once the hog is put back in the trailer, we have people in there to make sure they're washed off completely right away. There's fresh bedding in the trailers. And once their pig wrestle is over, if you go back and look in the trailer, the hogs are very content. A lot of them are laying down and sleeping. The hogs are not in any stress at time. Several years, the hogs have gone back to my farm after the show. Mm-hmm. I go back there probably once the show is over within an hour and a half's time. And when they're kept at my place, I usually have them kind of trained to be a little, almost pets, I shouldn't say pets, but then when I come by, I'll have a treat for them or something to give to them. They're right back at the gate. They want to be their ears scratched. They want to be, come to the gate to see what I'm up to, and they're right back to normal. They're well taken care of. Even this past year, they're back in the other trailer. I went and checked on them, lots of them laying down. There were no stress at all, well taken care of. They're all washed off, they're checked over. Very well taken care of.
Well, other than the squeal that they make, what else is the complaint of the people you get the phone calls from?
They think we're abusing them, mistreating them, hurting them.
Giving them nightmares.
Giving them nightmares. Most of the people that are doing this have no animal background, misinformed. Donald brought up, I had one lady called me up and told me all these pigs are going to have nightmares. And I said, how do you know this? Are you an animal scientist or veterinary? She said, no. Have you raised hogs? No. And she just kept telling me, I know they're going to have nightmares. And I just found this very interesting. No scientific background at all behind this. Another one called me up and told me about how terrible it was that what we're doing, I'm using these hogs in such terrible ways. And then I told her about, I was giving these pigs reprieve. Some years I do buy the hogs on the way to the slaughterhouse, and I do give them a 2-week reprieve, and yes, they will eventually be at the slaughterhouse. And she thought that was just terrible, and I told her I'm in a dairy area. And then she brought up to me how terrible it was the dairy farmers killing the cows to get their milk. So that told me about how well informed she is about animals and animal husbandry and what's happening in the world as far as what she knows about the food supply and the food chain in our world. Another lady called me from Miami, and she starts getting on to me she was very rude, and I said, where are you from? Miami. I said, yeah, I've been in Miami. And I said, from what I know about Miami, it's probably one of the largest areas in the world for child abuse, child pornography, and child prostitution. And she starts getting on me. She says, why are you trying to change the subject? And I said, I'm just saying, take care of the problem in your own backyard. You're worried about 17 hogs 2,000 miles away. You've got major problems in your own backyard. Please take care of your own problems.
Are the people who contact you as civil as we are right now in the conversation?
A few of them are. If they're civil, I will talk with them. Mm-hmm. Lots of them are, we could not put on TV the way they talk to me.
Okay.
I've kept most of the emails. I'd let you read them someday. Most of them we could not put on public TV.
All right. Apparently, I'm told that you have got a few stories you can tell about the hogs and the thresherie, and I invite you to open up right now on that.
Oh, we just had a lot of fun. I've had, this past year, I had a girl call me. She was from Lithuania, I believe it was, and she called me up wanting to pig wrestle, and I had a hard time understanding her. I said, got her to calm down. She was very broken English, and she had actually the team that got second place in the ladies division, and one was from Romania, one was from Lithuania, and they're all Eastern Bloc countries. Mm-hmm. And I said, boy, I'd love to have you come wrestle. So I spent probably 20 minutes talking with her, explaining it to her. Lithuania, anyway, 3 Eastern Bloc countries, and one was an American girl. And oh, she'd love to do it. I said, okay, I explained everything to her, and they came, and they were little tiny girls. And they come and they wrestled, and they got second place. And they actually had a picture of one of the local magazines, and these girls were ecstatic. And I went and talked to them afterwards, and they said, we took lots of pictures, and they said, we don't, nothing like that back home, and they were just ecstatic. They loved it, loved it, loved it. I've had, last year we had a team from, actually the people I went to college with, they're from southern Minnesota, they're in the late 50s. And they come a couple of years ago and they put it in the bucket list. So they were late 50s, and them and the wives all come up to wrestle. They didn't catch the pig, they wanted it in the bucket list. Years back, I was out at Joe and Nancy's bar out in Rosare, and I was talking to some young girls about coming to pig wrestle. And this elderly lady, I shouldn't say elderly, she was 65, and she come and started giving me a little attitude, and she thought I was trying to hustle these girls up. These 3 girls were her granddaughters. And I said, no, I'm just talking about pig wrestling. And I got talking with her, and then she understood, and she finally said, if them little piss ants won't do it, I will. And it turned out she came and wrestled, and their team was made up of ladies between 55 and 65 years old. And they had a ball doing it. So you never told the pig wrestle. We had a lot of fun with it. They didn't win, but they had a lot of fun.
So you have different contestants each year, rather than the same gang coming out, is that
right? And we've had some do it. The guys and girls did it for a lot of years. I believe Shirley did it till she was about 54 or 55. Shirley Geisel did it. The guys and girls did it a lot of years. They were very, very tough to beat at the girls division. We've got the guys from the Greystone Castle for the number of years, Greg Eagle's sons. They've been wrestling the last 7 or 8 years. They've been very, very tough. They don't win it every year, but they're very tough competitors. Last couple of years, this year they did not have a team from Bayside up in Fish Creek. Like Bayside, isn't it, Fish Creek? Yeah. They normally come. They're pretty drunk. They generally don't do very good, but they always have a lot of fun.
Speaking of the drunk, then you have, obviously you serve beer. Yes. What do you serve for food? Any pork barbecue?
You know, we do have full pork sandwiches. I do, I cook up, Friday before the show starts, I cook up, about 100 pounds of, pork for pulled pork sandwiches. We do sell that. We have bratwurst. We do have hamburgers. So we have good selection of food. We have beer beverages all weekend long. We try to keep everything at our show very reasonable. Admission for the whole weekend is $8. A can of beer is $2.
Okay.
A brat, a burger, a pulled pork sandwich is $3, so it's very reasonable. One thing we've tried to do since day one is make this a family event, so you can afford to bring the family. We've got a lot of stuff going on all weekend for the entire family. Make it a family event so it's affordable. We built a train a number of years ago for the kids to ride on, and I've heard this from a number of, especially out-of-town people, tourists come up. The train rides are free for the kids, and it's done to give them a Tootsie Roll. And to get somebody comes out of Chicago or something, number one, it's free, and they get a Tootsie Roll on top of it. They cannot imagine that happening. And so it's a very, very reasonable thing. Plus, under 12, it's free admission on top of it. So that's something that did a lot of comments from outside people. That everything like that, it's a family event, and we try to keep it affordable. I said,
Pause. First of all, his name is Don Rudolph. If you would correct yourself, you could call him John.
I'm sorry.
He was so nice about it, he just winked. And secondly, let's get him off from the pig. We've got enough of pigs. Let's tell, as you were starting to do, let's tell everybody what they could see, the equipment they could see. And I don't think we mentioned that this is the Antique Power Association,
Yes.
or Northeastern
Northeastern,
Wisconsin.
yep.
Because people may not know this is antique, and this is a little different from just seeing your latest tractor. Throw out some brand names there and some activities people can enjoy, like you started to do. Okay, go ahead. I'm gonna splice this in, so
okay.
Wait, whoa.
just pick up.
Start correcting what you're saying.
I would suggest do that first. And you,
My producer tells me that I got your name wrong, Don. I called you John. I apologize for that. Don Rudolph.
I've been called worse.
And Ralph Bochek are the two people that I'm talking with. And that you're viewing this on Sevastopol Public Access TV, channel 986. We were starting to talk, Ralph, of the menu. What are some of the other activities that a visitor to the Thresheree encountered? What do you see? Oh, you're going to take this? Okay.
We've got several displays going intermittently throughout the weekend. We have antique machinery, including threshing machines.
What does it take to be an antique machine of that nature?
Well, there's no fixed hard and fast rule. Antique machinery typically is something that's not commonly used anymore. So
Such
we're
as,
looking,
I guess I'm asking you to elaborate on what type of machinery are we talking about?
probably machines that were used up until about the 1950s or 60s. So we're looking at antique hay presses, antique threshing machines, a stone crusher. We're looking at a sawmill that's set up with a rotating circular saw and planing mill. All machines that were built before about 1930 or 1940.
And they're powered by antique tractors, is that right?
That's correct. Typically, antique tractors are considered to be before 1960.
Any particular brands that are popular?
Well,
I see you're wearing a case hat, but,
yeah, I'm known as the local case fanatic.
okay.
There are going to be every brand recognized that are still manufactured today. Many of them have also gone out of business. There's going to be Massey Harris, John Deere, International Harvester, Alice Chalmers, Ford. You're going to find some of the rare brands, Uber. You're going to find Rock Island. Some brands that people probably have never even heard of before.
Now, case was made in Wisconsin, right?
Started in
Racine?
1842 in Racine, Wisconsin.
Yeah. And so you have the antique power, the antique equipment, and you got hog rustling. What else happens?
Well, we recently put up a dedicated blacksmith shop,
Okay.
and we have a gentleman by the name of Jerry Falk who is well-versed in blacksmithing trade, and he puts on demonstrations daily using molten metal and hammers and various blacksmithing tools to make different sorts of hardware.
And you mentioned the kids' activities, the train ride. Are we missing anything?
We also have a large sawmill,
Okay.
which seems to be, to me, very well received by many of the people. We have a large sawmill that'll be sawing lumber, edging lumber, planing lumber. We built that, actually started building that when we bought the grounds a number of years ago. Since that time, we've expanded it, putting a large building over it, adding a edger and a planer to it as well. The sawmill is run with a large stationary gas engine run by a belt. It can also be run with a steam engine or a large tractor with a belt power.
Okay.
Very well received by the people. Every time that started up, there's lots of people watching it. People always seem to be mesmerized by watching the large blade cutting large pine or wood logs in the lumber.
Now, you say you get about 3,000, 3,500 spectators at this event every year.
Yes, we do.
And it's always held, is it the third weekend of August every year?
Third full weekend, correct.
How does one find out in advance what's going on? Do you have an email address or something?
Yes,
of
we
that
do have an email. We also have a website. It's valmythresheree.org. Very easy to find. We have flyers out, advertising all throughout the state, or just Google Valmy Thresheree and we'll bring you to our website and bring up advice, and bring up events that's going on. And also on YouTube, there's a number of things on YouTube about the Thresheree as well.
You mentioned very early on in this interview that you're a group of enthusiasts from the old power, agricultural equipment. What's the name of your group? I didn't ask that.
Actually, our official name is Northeast Wisconsin Antique Power Association.
Okay.
That's the official name, but it's our recognized name, I guess, or not proper name, is the Valmy Thresheree.
Okay.
But our official name is the Northeast Wisconsin Antique Power Association.
I got an invite to actually display a piece of my automobile collection there. That was last year. I was invited by a gentleman, I can't recall his name, but I have a couple of old Buick Roadmaster station wagons. They were built in the 80s and 90s, but they're over 20 years old now. And I was asked to bring one of those, and I thought, nah, it's not old enough yet.
Not quite old enough yet.
So what do you have planned for next year?
Next year, I gotta think what our future tractor is. Is it Massey Harris?
Massey Harris, Massey Ferguson.
Oh, so you have a featured brand each year?
Yes, we do.
Okay. What was it this year?
This we did things a little bit different. We featured orchard tractors and high crop tractors.
Okay. What's a high crop tractor? I'm not familiar with that.
High crop tractors were not very common in this part of the country. We had a few around here because we had Evergreen Nursery had a few.
Yeah.
High crop tractors were most commonly used in the southern part of the country where we had sugarcane and that type of stuff.
Okay.
Evergreen Nursery had it for cultivating their trees. That's about the only place we had some around here. Collectors have got a few around. Don's got one. I had a few. I had a couple myself a few years back that I didn't sell. But the most common place was used in the Louisiana, Mississippi, and the South California for the sugarcane industry. And the orchard tractors were very prevalent up here
Yeah.
40, 50 years ago used in the orchards.
You mentioned that you have some tractors on your own and other equipment. How many tractors do you have? Both of you.
I got about 110.
Is that all?
That's all.
How much have you done?
I'm a little reluctant to say, as my wife is probably going to see this. I've only got 17.
17? Officially? Okay. What's your pride and joy in your collection?
I usually say the next one,
Yeah?
but my favorite tractor is more than likely a 1952 DC3 case LP gas that I
Okay.
brought back from Texas.
And you?
Oh, I guess I got a lot of tractors. I like my John Deere R's, but I've got some real oddball stuff. I've got a Field Marshal that come from England during the war. That was a single cylinder, 2-cycle diesel. Very few were made. I take it to shows and there can be 1,000 all painted up pretty tractors, and I go start that one up and people just love it.
I think I've heard that one. Do you actually go out and show it off other places than at the
Yes, I
Thresheree?
do, yep.
Because I've heard of one lunger down by me, and where I live right over the line in Kewaunee County, and
It's been in the Kewaunee County Show. I take it to Simcoe every few years. I've taken to other shows, and they always say, when do you bring the Field Marshal back? When do you bring the Field Marshal back? It's probably the world's poorest designed tractor ever. But people do love to see it out and love to see it go.
I've heard that about most British machinery, it's the poorest designs, and
Very poorly engineered.
yeah. So where do we go from here? And as you look ahead, you have an organization, you have your own property, and you have hog wrestling that'll continue, I presume.
It's going to continue. We've got our goals right now. We're looking at putting up another building. We are growing, and we're looking at right now, we've got, our goals right now are to put another building up. We're looking at our goals of, finding some more equipment for the club, and we need storage space. If we're gonna preserve this stuff, we need places to put it inside. So our goal right now is we're talking about a building somewhere in that vintage or size of probably 50 to 60 feet wide, about 100 to 120 feet long. And that's probably our next goal for our next project. Also down the road, we're talking about also putting up a small, like a cheese factory or a milk plant. And our two goals we've got in the next, probably a 5-year range plan. I guess any organization, you've always got want list,
Yeah.
and that might be two that are coming up. Probably a small service station might be another thing in the want list. Service station probably of the 30 to the 40s vintage. But
Well,
they're,
I know where there is one. It's in Algoma, but it's already pretty well spoken for, I believe. That's the kind you're talking about, correct?
Exactly.
yeah. And it's just things, it just takes time, takes money, it takes effort to make things grow. And it's kind of a hurry slowly deal, and eventually we'll have it.
Has this gone beyond being a hobby for you guys?
It's a difficult question. There's a fine line between a job and a hobby, I guess. We do spend a lot of time with it. I spend a lot of time personally with it. And I guess we still got to classify it a hobby, though.
Okay. Have I not touched on something you want to talk about here?
Well, I think we skipped past the tractor pull that we have
Ah, okay.
every Saturday during the event. We typically get somewhere in the vicinity of 100 to 115 tractors that pull, and they're all of the antique variety.
How does that work? I mean, I know that you have a weighted sled that the tractor has to pull, is that right?
For the smaller tractors, we actually have a stone boat that people get on as it goes down the track, and progressively the additional weight slows the tractor down and stops it.
Mm-hmm.
For our larger tractors, then we have a what's called an eliminator that was built by members of the club, and that has a large weight bed that continually goes forward and puts more pressure and more weight on a steel skid plate until the tractor gets stopped.
Now, under those circumstances, how do you determine a winner? The person or the vehicle that got farthest down the track?
Exactly correct.
And what kind of prizes are we talking about?
Well, we're typically talking about the first 3 places getting a trophy that are sponsored by local businesses, and we gratefully acknowledge their effort to help us out in that regard. And a few bucks from the entry fee.
Okay. Have I missed anything else?
I guess one thing I'd like to bring up about the old style stone boat. The old style stone boat is the way the tractor pulls were done all over the state of Wisconsin, though probably about the late 60s, early 70s, until somebody invented the actual mechanical stone motor eliminator. Here, all the county fairs was done on a much larger scale than this, but all the pulls were done that way until that time. And I believe it's the only place, I go to a lot of tractor pulls all over the state, and as far as I know, it's the only place in the state of Wisconsin still using that.
So you could say that the Valmy Thresheree is a throwback county fair.
It's exactly.
And so do you need a carnival?
No, we don't want a carnival. That is one thing we do not want.
Okay. Well, we've been talking with Ralph Bochek and Don Rudolph, not John, as I said earlier. I apologize again. Appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today, and maybe we've enlightened some folks on what actually happens at the Thresheree. I'll see you next August, all right?
Hope to see you there.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.